Now, this is a slide that we're going to keep coming back to or reminding ourselves of as we work through the class, because it's really going to help guide our thought process when hunting for and responding to intrusions. It will sort of serve as the foundation for how we approach threat detection and incident response and performing investigations at scale. One of the key truths about threat hunting and incident response is that they both demand versatility, right? As investigators, we need to be able to work with and ultimately make sense of a wide range of data or evidence sources, right? Whether we're analyzing endpoint telemetry or working with network logs or flow records, right? Maybe looking at command line artifacts or memory and file system forensics, really whatever it may be. The more sources that we can tap into and the more comfortable we are with interpreting them, the more successful we'll be at answering investigative questions and drawing meaningful conclusions. And so we're really going to dive into a ton of diverse evidence sources all throughout the class, and we'll talk more about some of the most useful sources that we should get comfortable with later on. At its heart, SOC 201 is about convergence. Right? It brings together investigative practices from threat hunting, from incident response and digital forensics into a more unified kind of operational or structured approach. Right? We have to recognize that modern defenders can't afford to operate in silos. Instead, we need to combine speed and precision and adaptability to meet the demands of the modern adversary. And so this means being comfortable with both proactive and reactive work, right? Finding threats before they do harm and remediating them when they do. And a core challenge in this work is scale. Enterprise environments are sprawling, with thousands of endpoints and users and systems all generating massive amounts of data, right? The methodology that we develop needs to be one that teaches us to change altitude, right? To zoom out and scan broadly across the enterprise, and then zoom in to focus deeply on specific assets or systems or users with surgical precision. We need to be comfortable with pivoting in this way, using the evidence and indicators or findings that we've discovered on one system. We need to be able to take that information and use it to guide our next steps across the enterprise. Right? Every piece of evidence that we find becomes a lead, and learning to follow these leads across different layers of the environment is a core skill in both incident response and threat hunting. For example, we might start with a single indicator or an IOC, like a specific file or binary, or maybe the name of a scheduled task, or maybe the location of a potential command and control server, and ask where else has this shown up in the environment. But we might also need to pivot and zoom into another compromised endpoint with more surgical or microscopic precision and examine things like its processes or registry activity or different memory artifacts, right? Or maybe event logs in more detail. In both cases, we're applying the same evidence and hypothesis-driven mindset, right? This is how we can avoid rabbit holes and stay focused when hunting for threats. It's also how we avoid the pitfalls that come with incomplete remediation, right? And we'll talk about this, but by fully understanding the scope of a compromise, we reduce the risk of a partial cleanup, right? Or maybe missing certain artifacts that lead to reinfection or trigger further escalation from the adversary. And again, we'll talk more about that in some more detail in the upcoming modules. But ultimately, it's not just about relying on playbooks or checklists or tools, right? It's really building up that investigative agility, right? This kind of tacit knowledge that naturally develops over time through hands-on experience and exposure, right? It's this sort of instinct to ask the right next question and be able to quickly pivot around the environment and to adapt our efforts as new evidence emerges, right? That kind of mindset can't really be scripted or automated. And all of this might sound intimidating at first, right? But fortunately, we're going to be covering many strategies and techniques throughout the course to do exactly this kind of thing.